Chapter 11, Fragile Victory. The day the Medicaid auditors closed their investigation, the office was unusually quiet. After weeks of scrutiny and tense meetings, the lead investigator finally delivered the verdict. The issues stemmed from poor record-keeping, not deliberate fraud. Thanks to Elsie Johnson's tireless effort to organize the chaos, the auditors left satisfied that all errors had been addressed. Dr. Carrington managed to avoid a public scandal and was allowed to plead guilty to minor administrative oversights without significant punishment. He would pay a fine and undergo a brief compliance review, but his license and reputation remained intact for now. As the staff celebrated the good news, Russell sat alone in his office, staring at his reflection in a framed certificate. The man looking back didn't feel like the celebrated dentist or community leader. He felt like a fraud, not because of the investigation, but because he had compromised everything he once believed in. Despite the reprieve, Dr. Carrington couldn't let go of what had led to the investigation. His thoughts kept returning to Johnny May, replaying every mistake she had made and every careless oversight. To him, she was the reason his empire had nearly crumbled. "She was supposed to help me," he said, pacing his office. "I gave her everything, money, a job, a place in my life, and this is how she repays me? By almost ruining everything I've worked for?" His bitterness toward Johnny May grew with each passing day. He confided in a few close colleagues, painting her as an ungrateful and incompetent distraction. "She almost destroyed my career," he told them. "I should have known better than to mix business with personal matters." The whispers began to circulate, tarnishing Johnny May's reputation. Though she had already left his life, his influence still lingered, making it difficult for her to move on. Meanwhile, Elsie Johnson remained at the office, restoring it to its former efficiency. Though she kept their interactions strictly professional, Russell couldn't ignore the disdain in her eyes whenever she spoke to him. He knew she had returned to fix the mess, not for him, and that knowledge stung more than he cared to admit. On the surface, life at the practice returned to normal. The office ran smoothly, the investigation was over, and Dr. Carrington's career continued. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. His colleagues noticed his growing paranoia, and his staff tiptoed around his volatile moods. For Dr. Carrington, the real punishment wasn't in the courtroom or from the investigation. It was in the slow erosion of his sense of self. He realized that the man he had become was a far cry from the man he once aspired to be. By the end of 1971, the chaos of the Medicaid investigation had faded into memory, though its scars remained. Dr. Carrington's dental practice, once on the brink of ruin, began to recover. The addition of Dr. Harding, a bright, eager graduate of Meharry Medical School, brought much-needed relief. Harding's enthusiasm and fresh perspective reinvigorated the office, and his ability to manage a large portion of the patient load allowed Dr. Carrington to take a step back. Orthodontist Gwendolyn Dunn, who had taken a brief hiatus during the turbulent months of the investigation, returned to full capacity, adding further stability. Working together, they navigated the demanding schedule, treating the 40 to 60 patients who passed through the doors each day. Patients who had doubted the practice during the investigation gradually returned, reassured by the staff's professionalism. Despite the newfound normalcy, Dr. Carrington was preoccupied with personal matters. On Christmas Eve, his 17-year-old son, Russell Carrington III, paid him a visit and announced that he was about to become a father. "The baby is due in mid-January," Russell III said nervously, glancing at his father. "We're planning for the delivery that weekend." Dr. Carrington stared at his son for a long moment before nodding. "You'll handle this responsibly," he said in a measured tone. "It's time for you to step up." Though he appeared calm, the news left Dr. Carrington unsettled. At 38, he was about to become a grandfather, a stark reminder of how quickly time was passing. Meanwhile, Johnny May's time in Baltimore was drawing to a close. After leaving the apartment Dr. Carrington had purchased for her, she moved in with her sister, quietly planning her return to Chester, South Carolina. Her relationship with Dr. Carrington was long over, and the glamour that once surrounded them had dissolved. She missed her daughter and longed for the simplicity of life in the South, far from the whispers and judgment she endured in Baltimore. Although she didn't speak to him directly, She left a note at the office addressed to Dr. Carrington. "Thank you for everything you did for me. I'm going back home to be with my family. I hope you find what you're looking for. Take care." Dr. Carrington read the note in his office, his face unreadable. He folded it carefully and placed it in his desk drawer, uncertain why he chose to keep it. As 1971 came to a close, Russell reflected on the year's events. The Medicaid investigation had served as a wake-up call, forcing him to confront the fragility of his reputation and the ramifications of his decisions. Yet, as always, he managed to land on his feet, maintaining his perfect smile, his image of success, and the veneer of stability. He thought about how his grandson's birth in January of 1972 would mark the start of a new chapter in his life, a reminder of the passage of time. He vowed to focus on his family and his practice, reassuring himself that the worst was behind him. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that his newfound peace was only temporary, a fragile calm before the next storm. The new year arrived with a sense of optimism that Dr. Carrington welcomed. The practice was running smoothly, and the turmoil of the past year felt like a distant memory. While preparing for a dinner party at his Cross Keys condo, Dr. Carrington allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. That morning, he received a phone call from his son. "Dad, the baby's here," Russell III said excitedly. "Priscilla gave birth to a healthy baby boy, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. We named him Russell H. Carrington IV. Dr. Carrington leaned back in his chair, a wide smile spreading across his face. "That's wonderful news, son. Congratulations to both of you," he said, pausing to savor the moment. "Bring the baby boy to the office on Monday. I want to meet my grandson." For the first time in months, Dr. Carrington felt renewed hope for the future. The thought of holding the next generation of his family filled him with pride. By the time the dinner party began that evening, Dr. Carrington was in high spirits. His Cross Keys condo looked immaculate, the table set with fine china and crystal. The guests included colleagues and friends who both admired and respected him. Throughout the evening, he moved effortlessly around the room, greeting guests and ensuring everyone felt welcome. His date for the night, a poised, elegant woman from the dental board, remained close by, enhancing his image of success and charm. All that changed when Johnny May walked in. She appeared radiant, her smile confident as she approached Dr. Carrington with a tall, sharply dressed man on her arm. "Dr. Carrington," she said, her voice warm but firm, "I'd like you to meet Michael." "Michael, this is Dr. Carrington." Dr. Carrington's gaze flicked between them, his mind racing. Seeing Johnny May with another man hit him like a gut punch, but he quickly masked his reaction, extending his hand. "Pleasure to meet you," he said, his tone steady but clipped. Michael shook his hand firmly and offered a polite smile. "I've heard a lot about you, Dr. Carrington. Have you?" Russell replied, a subtle edge to his voice. Johnny May noticed the tension but remained composed, introducing Michael to the other guests before moving on. For the rest of the evening, Russell's attention veered between his social obligations and the sight of Johnny May laughing with Michael. The ease with which she had seemingly moved on stung more deeply than he cared to admit. His companion noticed his irritation and leaned in. "Everything all right?" Dr. Carrington forced a smile. "Of course. Just a lot on my mind." But as the evening progressed, his mood darkened. Every shared laugh between Johnny May and Michael felt like a provocation, and every glance she threw in Russell's direction was a reminder of what he had lost and would never regain. Though the party ended without incident, Dr. Carrington's thoughts remained elsewhere as the last guest departed. Alone with his overnight guest in his condo, he poured them both a drink and stared out at the city lights. He was certain Johnny May's appearance had been calculated. She wanted him to see that she had moved on, that she no longer needed him. Yet the sight of her with someone else unsettled him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. Earlier that day, the birth of his grandson had filled him with joy, but now that happiness felt overshadowed by the night's events. Once again, his personal and professional lives were colliding, pulling him in opposite directions. As he finished his drink, Russell made a silent vow. He would never allow anyone, not Johnny May or anyone else, to undermine his image or legacy again. But deep down, he couldn't ignore the nagging fear that the cracks in his facade were already starting to show.